our ambitions, our wants, our ignorance. Are there too many of us? Are we consuming too much? If everyone lived like we do in the developed Western world, we'd need 6 Earths to sustain life. Clearly, we can't keep living this way.
We are now part of an integrated global society, a global economy. We're tied together, and we're either going to make it together or we're going to fail together.
If we as a society actually care anything about future generations, we have no choice but to act now.
Everything connects to climate change, from our economy to our politics to social justice issues. Everything connects to climate change.
When I look at the humongous homes that people build, the giant cars they drive, the more exotic locations they have to fly to, the more stuff they need to accumulate, it is like a bad dream, really. And maybe it is as simple as just deciding to wake up out of that dream and look at reality.
My greatest wish for humanity is that they understand the issues which now confront them.
We are continuing to burn fossil fuels at an ever-increasing rate, while at the same time chopping down the world's forests, which are important sinks for carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide today is higher than it's been for many millions of years. And carbon dioxide, like many other greenhouse gases, is changing the energy balance of the planet, and as a result, global temperatures are increasing rapidly.
One of the places where we're seeing the most kind of severe effects of climate change is in our coral reefs. And corals are so important. They support an estimated like 1/3 of all of the species in the ocean. And they support about 500 million people, the livelihoods of about 500 million people. And around the world, corals are on the verge of collapse.
Ocean waters are now warming rapidly. This is causing ecological disturbances in almost every marine ecosystem, including coral reefs, where mass coral bleaching has begun to degrade these important and magical underwater kingdoms.
Climate change ultimately affects all environmental issues and exacerbates all environmental issues. First and foremost, the biggest threat is to our oceans. Oceans basically sequester and suck in carbon, so there's more carbon in the oceans right now.
The scientific evidence behind climate change is largely irrefutable. The scientific literature is filled with hundreds of peer-reviewed papers in the very best scientific journals that outline the serious nature of this threat to marine ecosystems such as coral reefs. But most of all, we run the risk of damaging the heart and lung machine of this planet, and that has very serious consequences for us all.
The retreat of sea ice in September 2007 was far in excess of any projection from any model under any scenario. It just blew the community away.
The Arctic ice sheet is essentially like a mirror, and it reflects the sunlight basically back out into outer space. And that helps as a temperature regulator and is one of the air conditioners, so to speak, of the world. And so as that melts further, that exacerbates climate change even more.
If we don't stop producing carbon dioxide at the rate we are doing it, we are going to plunge this planet into absolute chaos. That chaos can result in a mass extinction which will destroy most life on this planet.
Climate change is already impacting biodiversity around the world, in every place that we look, in every corner of the globe. And so many species are already on the edge because they don't have places to live. We've destroyed their habitat. We've taken away many of their food sources. There has also been some new studies on lizards, showing that lizards are also in trouble because many of them, as it gets too hot, can't get out there and get enough to eat. And that means that they don't have enough energy to have babies.
Scientists estimate as many as 100 to 1,000 species are wiped off the face of the Earth each day. And scientists expect 2/3 of the world's species could be gone by the end of the century.
We pretend that we have a plan to deal with the climate crisis, and yet we don't have a plan to shut down the tar sands, to shut down mountaintop removal mining.
Canada has the biggest reserves of oil in the world, but it's not liquid. It's mixed with sand, dirt, and earth, making it intense and costly to extract.
The Alberta tar sands is the most environmentally destructive project of its kind on this planet. It is strip mining the boreal forests, which are nature's carbon sink, the way in which nature deals with carbon and stores carbon. It is generating 2 to 3 times as much greenhouse gas emissions and carbon emissions into the atmosphere as conventional oil does. And furthermore, we are depleting the freshwater system simply because to produce that barrel of oil, it requires 2 to 5 barrels of water.
The tar sands is an example of everything wrong with modern day society. It is every environmentalist's worst nightmare because you pick your favorite environmental issue, it's encaptured in the tar sands, whether it be biodiversity loss through, degradation of natural habitat, wasted water use, pollution of land surface, greenhouse gas emissions. You pick it, it's there.
We're here on the behalf of all of our relations, not just the human beings.
The tar sands are the fastest growing source of greenhouse gas emissions in Canada, and it's one of the biggest emitters of toxic contaminants in our traditional territories.
This whole process leaves behind huge lakes of toxic waste, and these tailings contain hydrocarbons, things like naphthenic acids, heavy metals.
The area that we're talking about spans 140,000 square kilometers, so we're talking about an area that's bigger than England and Wales combined. It currently accounts for up to 40 million tons of CO2 emissions a year, which is bigger than the entire country. And when you come back to where our families live, where my family lives, and you see the first-hand destruction of the earth, it's very intimately linked to the global crisis that we find ourselves in.
Canada plans to expand the tar sands 20 times, bringing in $300 billion over the next 25 years.
I would say if we really go to exploit the Alberta tar sands, that would be the point of no return. But it would open a Pandora's box of greenhouse gases, again, of the size of all what Saudi Arabia has. And if we really go down that road, then it means we have given up on climate stabilization. So in a sense, this is one of the decisive battles in the war against global warming.
If we can get the market to tell the truth and reflect the full costs of getting the oil out of the tar sands in the Athabascan region of Canada, then that oil will become so costly we probably won't want to use it, and we'll begin looking at electric cars and building wind farms and running our cars on electricity, for example. And I think the key to restructuring the global economy to get off the current decline and collapse path really depends on a rapid restructuring of the energy economy.
The costs of solving this problem are a fraction of GDP. They really are. I mean, the costs to deal with this are insignificant. We just, through a financial crisis, are throwing trillions of dollars to support industries that are going bankrupt. But we're not willing to solve a problem that would cost less, that actually means the existence of our species towards the future.
Because to switch the global economy so that it's more conserving of natural resources, less abusive of the capacity of the earth to sustain life, steps on a lot of toes. And there's some very powerful brokers who don't want to see it happen. And so we have a very unlevel playing field with a lot of misinformation.
Current estimates reveal that it would cost less than 1% of GDP growth over the next 50 years to restrain carbon dioxide from rising above 450 parts per million. This is a time in which we must take strong action to stabilise the world climate and to save ecosystems such as coral reefs and rainforests. All these changes and strategies are within our grasp. All we have to do is take action.
It's not as though we don't know what's happening in the world. We have an enormous amount of data on everything from soil erosion to climate change. And we know what needs to be done about it. We know how to conserve soil. We know how to stabilize climate. But the question is whether we can mobilize the will.
We have to force our heads of governments to do something, because they know exactly the problems we have. They know everything, but they're not doing it, so we have to force them to do it.
I mean, when people start to run out of clean drinking water, when they start to, see catastrophic climate change, whether it's things like Hurricane Katrina or things like that, they see the direct effects, then we have to hope people are going to start asking for change.
Nobody has a good idea what the future will look like. We have glimpses, we can extrapolate trends, but I know that what I do today can change the course of events, and that's true for everybody. But fundamentally, we don't know where we're heading.
What if we figured this out and made life on Earth beautiful for all species? What if we came together and fought for each other, our future, and our home? What if we made it through this extinction? What could we do in 1,000 years? What would we be capable of in 1,000,000 years?